Hi, I'm Josh and welcome back to my channel. Today is my Friday reads and I'm going to be doing an update for Buzzword Readathon where I had to read nothing but Night, and then give my TBR for the Queer Lit Weekendathon. So, the Buzzword Readathon started on Monday, I believe, and it's supposed to go till Sunday. That said, the Queer Lit Weekendathon starts tomorrow, so I will be participating in that instead of Buzzword Readathon, of which the buzzword is Night. If I had played my cards right, I probably could have made them both work, but for some reason I thought they were separated, that one ended before the other one started. And in any case, there are two books I've been planning to read for the Queer Lit Weekendathon that don't have the word night in it anyways. So I've just decided to cut it short. That is to say, cut the Buzzword Readathon short. I've gotten a few books read this week. Honestly, it's been kind of a lackluster week. First, I read Charlie Jane Anders' The City in the Middle of the Night. And this one, a big disappointment, unfortunately. I loved Charlie Jane Anders' other book, first book, All the Birds in the Sky. It was, in my opinion, similar or akin to Middle Game. Maybe not in its overall complexity, but in the mesh of sci-fi and fantasy in the most beautiful and amazing way. Honestly, my dislike for this book makes me want to reread that book, just so I remind myself that Charlie Jane Anders is amazing. So if I had read this book first, I would have probably ignored that book. And it's a travesty. There's so much about this that just did not work for me. The concept, I don't think it's focused enough. It's definitely creative. Charlie Jane Anders just have a very creative mind, and it's very present when the book's done, like what she was going for, and I really appreciate it for that. It's basically set in this futuristic world where humans, or at least some sect of humans, have had to colonize on this planet that is tidally locked, which basically means it's like the moon. As it rotates around its sun, one face is constantly staying locked to the sun, which for life is pretty bad because you get a constant influx of heat on one side and no heat coming in on the other side. With an atmosphere and some mixing of the atmosphere, you have some livability that might be going on, especially in the middle region where things are beginning to blend together. And that's basically what's going on here. And on this world, there's some unique life, but in general, humans are struggling to live. And the government is very problematic. There's some really heavy-handed commentary here on oppressive governments, and I don't think it was handled that well. But there are some really creative aliens in this book, and it ends up being this conversation between this one human, our main protagonist, or one of our main protagonists. I think she's still our main protagonist. The book splits with 3 different points of view, but even within those, I think it's safe to say there is one specific protagonist. And when we talk to these aliens, basically, we find out that they're not as monsters like humans assume. They're in fact intelligent, and there's a lot we could learn from them. And that is a really interesting, provocative part of the story. Probably the biggest reason why I gave it 3 stars instead of 2 or 1, which I really wanted to. I almost DNF'd this for the first third, and then it picked up enough for me to care. The problem with this book is the pacing. That's the first problem. She spends so much time focusing on certain aspects of the story. There were 7 parts, by the way, and by the time I'm done, I'm thinking to myself, there are certain parts in the middle here, in the beginning here, that just did not need to focus there so much. It really wasn't that relevant. You had a certain story you wanted to tell, and you could have gotten there a lot faster, or at least by changing where you're focusing your time and attention. This book is already pretty short, which is weird that it feels so unnecessarily long. On top of that, the fact is we're dealing with young adults. They're not teenagers, but they're fresh out of college, they're college age, but it reads as if I'm reading a young adult book, and this is supposed to be for adults. And unfortunately, it's not even the type of YA book that is accessible to adults. It feels immature and not enjoyable personally. I like a YA book that just isn't interesting to me. Just not the type of dialogue that I was interested in, that I could say interesting, that wasn't just annoying. There was some character development, but all in all though, I feel like a lot of our characters had a certain clearly defined path for them, where they would end up. And they all ended up going there anyways. It was, like, again, kind of heavy-handed, not very well handled. Which I have so much commentary here just because I was really hoping to like this, and I hate that I didn't, because I mean, she almost got a Hugo for this. I mean, at least she was nominated for it, and I know she got a Hugo, or it was a Nebula for All the Birds in the Sky, which I highly recommend over this book. I also have a collection of her short stories I want to read, and I'm still excited for that. I'm pretty sure she won a Hugo or Nebula or both for those. But this one ultimately just falls flat for me, and honestly, I wanted to read this back in March when the first Queer Lit Weekendathon was going to happen, and I didn't, because I had so many books I wanted to read, and part of it also was the fact that I heard some so-so commentary here. here. Now there is a queer relationship in here, or at least a queer love. On top of that, Charlie Jane Anders is herself a trans woman. So from that side, there's obviously plenty of representation here. All the more reason, I think, to give all the birds in the sky a try, by the way, especially if you like Middle Game. Granted, it's a different tone, but the genre is the same, if that makes any sense. But ultimately, it fell flat. It didn't work. I am glad that I finished it, especially since the best parts of it come in its conclusion, how everything ties together. But ultimately, it didn't work. I'm surprised I had so much to say about that. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't entirely bad. 3 stars, I think, on the low end of 3 stars, but still a fair 3 stars. So something I enjoyed, that I'm glad I read, but had a lot of problems. And then I read Binti, and I Masquerade gave this 4 stars. This is the 3rd book in the Binti series about a young woman who leaves her African home to venture out into the solar system, into the galaxy, and that is frowned upon in her society because they're very much closed off from this new galactic, advanced, futuristic world out there. We're in this future where there's this galaxy type civilization, but this group of people, they decided to stay in their home, and it's very frowned upon when you leave. And this one woman, she leaves, and this is a conclusion of the narrative where we're getting a certain arc of her story, which has to do with understanding her place. What is she meant to do, or what works for her as a person, and learning to be a different from her where she comes from, but also still being a part of it. This was really good. I mean, Nnedi Okorafor is very creative, like Charlie Jane Anders, and in general, I think she was more effective with this. One thing I do have a problem with this, though, is that I feel like this trilogy is more of just a book that she split into 3, and that's especially true for book 2 and 3. Granted, it had been a few months, like maybe half a year since I've read the 2nd book in the series, but this one, the story, it seemed like she unnecessarily gave us a cliffhanger for the sake of a cliffhanger, and it makes the story feel disjointed, as if it's not a complete work on its own. And that's really the biggest criticism here. It's also plays it kind of safe. I knew some things happened, and I sort of recognized that they weren't as they seemed, and because it is, like I said, a safe book. Another book that I read for the Buzzword Readathon was a horror anthology called Movies of the 1980s, the Midnight Cineplex or something. I don't remember what it's called. Here is the cover. This is just a themed horror anthology that is supposed to be an homage to 80s horror. I guess that's why I get it. I'm not born in the 80s, I was born in 1990, but I did grow up watching 1980s horror, and I love it, even if I didn't get the 1980s cinema experience. I'm glad that I just ended up reading it for this, because I'm not sure if I would have prioritized it any other way. Needing to pick stuff with the word night, like, okay, it's a good excuse to force myself to read it and deal with the fact that it's not on audio. And in the end, I think I gave it 3 stars. This is 14 stories, and the first half are terrible, in my opinion. I think I heard someone or read someone refer to them as being more absurdist in their ideas, and then maybe that's why it didn't work for me. They didn't click. I was actually pretty resigned to the fact that it just wasn't going to be a good collection, but I was going to finish it because I was doing the ARC review. Then I got to book number 7, and it was an amazing story. And then after that, I had a few more really good ones and some okay ones. So the last 7 of this collection actually made it worth it, I think. The first one I liked was by Gary something, and it's about this cinema which is tasked with protecting the world from the old ones of Lovecraft. The idea is Lovecraft old ones are real, and they will kill us all, except luckily they are satiated by classic flicks. I thought it was a beautiful premise, dark, and while I'm not someone who's deep into Lovecraft, I do love it when they start giving me some cosmic horror. And then there were 2 other good ones. There was one by Stephen Graham Jones, which had to do with this group of teens that broke into this old cinema and ended up finding out that it's haunted. And it was dark and delightful, and I think the embodiment of a good slasher flick. Those are the only 2 that really stick out to me now that I think about it. I have a written review on my Goodreads if you want to see the other one that I refer to. In general, though, some of the okay ones had a lot of potential, like they were creepy and they were a beautifully creative setup, but in the end they either didn't take it all the way, like they were playing it too safe, or I felt like it fell flat, like they didn't take it to fruition, in the sense that you have this beautiful idea but you don't give us a satisfying ending. Like, I don't mind ambiguity, but I need some sort of details to give me some context of what horror just happened. An example of they're telling it too safe, there's this one about this youth group that goes to this new cinema, and they get a special night of like a lock-in, and when they leave they seem to have been tainted by the devil, which I love because it uses the Christian mythos while also still mocking the Christian mythos. And I love how it plays both sides there. But in the end, though, it ended up playing it really safe in a way that I think just wasn't necessary. Make it dark. Make it not a happy ending. Those are my general thoughts. It was fun. Would I recommend it? If you're the kind of person who has a deep love for 80s horror, specifically 80s cinema experience, I think you'll enjoy it. If you do not have an existing love for that kind of horror, it probably isn't for you. I think I would have given up sooner if one wasn't an arc and two wasn't a theme that at least mildly interested me. And then I read Night, and this book I gave 5 stars to. This is supposed to be, I think, a nonfiction book, but it's told almost in a fictional way of Elie Wiesel. I'm pretty sure that's not correct, but this is a man who was taken as a boy into concentration camps with his father, and in the process having his sister or sisters and mother taken away, never seeing them again. And this is just his experience while there. This book was one of the darkest books I've ever read, and I was on the verge of tears for the majority of this book. It is short, but damn, does it pack a punch. On top of that, it's just so accessible and beautifully written. I think I was intimidated by this, knowing that it was a Pulitzer Prize winner or Nobel Peace Prize, maybe Pulitzer too, no, just Nobel Peace Prize, thinking that it was going to be one of those books that's just very cerebral. And it was definitely a lot to think about here, but I think everyone could enjoy this book. And enjoy, maybe not being the best term here, but I think get lost in it, perhaps is the best way to put it. During all this time, I've also been reading novellas out of 4 Past Midnight by Stephen King. And this one really was just because it's been on my shelf for a while and I needed to read some. I had planned on doing a reading vlog, or even try and plan like a readathon around Stephen King's birthday this month. Ultimately decided not to. With the recent rise in the Black Lives Matter movement, I've been forced to recognize and acknowledge some of the really problematic sides of Stephen King, and I'm not looking to over-idolize him. That said, I still enjoy his work, and I have a huge collection in the background, always bought used anyways, so I want to get through them still. So I picked this one up, long story short. And I've been reading one novella. It's clearly very long, maybe not very conducive to a readathon, but you know what? I love a challenge. And I've been reading one every book or so. I'm actually on the 3rd one now. I'm nearly done with the 3rd one of 4. This is about 3 stars. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a solid 3 stars. It's more enjoyable than Charlie Jane Andrews' book, but I would still say it's not the same. It's weird saying they're both 3 stars because one I'm enjoying more. There are other things that I put into it besides raw enjoyment, if that makes sense. The first story is The Langoliers, which I gave 3 stars, but I still absolutely loved. I mean, I never read The Langoliers, but I've seen the TV film, which is terrible, and I love it. I love it so much. It's about this group of people on a plane who go through some fissure in space-time, and they end up in an offset from time, basically being either in the past or in the future or something. And the idea is that our future and our past, these can exist in the universe, but only for a brief time, because once we pass through it, there's nothing there. It's just empty space. And there are these creatures who eat it up. If you've never seen a movie, I mean, you can at least watch it. I mean, it is from the 90s, so it's pretty tacky, but I love it. And it's them trying to figure out what's going on. So it's technically time travel, which I love. It's just really fun. And of course, there's just the sentimental value of me loving the TV movie. And the next one was The Secret Window, Secret Garden, something like that, which was made into a movie with Johnny Depp. A movie I never saw, one because it panned with the critics, but also just because it didn't seem very interesting. But after reading the story, I really want to watch it because it was actually better than The Langoliers. I think I gave it 4 stars. It was the story of this writer who is confronted by this disgruntled man from Mississippi who says he stole his story back in 1980 something. And this is, I think, it was set in late 1980s or 1990s. Why don't we just see when it was published? 1990, the year of my birth. So anyways, yeah, that gives you a general idea. And anyways, he's trying to figure out how to prove to this guy that he didn't steal it, because he wrote the story before he's claiming to have written it. As it plays out, it's just some weird gymnastics going on. It's dark. I love it. It's the epitome of what I think Stephen King's really good at when he's not playing it too safe. I like it when they play hardball with me. I hope the movie is at least half as good, and I'll be happy that I watched. Now, the 3rd book is The Library Police. The concept being there's this joke that, of course, you don't return your book, you're going to have the library police come after you. And I think Stephen King is probably the perfect person to turn that type of joke into reality. I mean, we know that Stephen King is great at turning absurd premises into a good story. That said, it's probably going to be a 3-star story. because the execution so far, as we get towards the climax, I think it's not evoking the same level of emotion or keepiness as I was hoping out of it. I'm not disappointed that I read it. It's mediocre fun, which is exactly what I wanted from this book. And the last story is The Sundog. I have no idea what it's about, but I anticipate it's going to be a 3-star. So I talked about the fact that I have the Queer Lit Weekendathon happening, and so I plan on starting that tomorrow. I might finish the list a bit tomorrow, but I'm hoping to finish this tonight and close off the Buzzword Readathon for myself, and then move on to the Queer Lit Weekendathon. So what are the 2 main books that were my original idea? Originally, picked 2 books here to read for the Queer Lit Weekendathon because it's only 2 days, but realizing that I don't really have anything else to read, I have a few days before October starts. I don't want to start my October TBR just because I'm very strict on how I approach things, but not so strict that I can't be flexible like I am now, which is to say I have some e-arcs that are queer, and I'm going to be reading those as well. Talking about the 2 books that I'm going to prioritize here, the first one I'm going to read is the Hugo Award-winning novel of 2020, A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. And what is this? It's some kind of space opera which is full of queerness. So that's why I'm reading it. I really bought it because I was annoyed that Middle Game didn't win, and I figured I'm going to check it out. I mean, if it claims to be better than Middle Game, then it must be pretty damn good. But I'm skeptical. And then after that, I'm going to be reading. Wait for it. An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon. And I'm really excited to be reading this. I'm also terrified because I know it's a dense novel full of really provocative ideas, but also just really well crafted. River Solomon is someone who I am really excited to finally be reading, just because I've heard so much about their ability to write sci-fi, especially with the commentary around race. And I've obviously heard a lot of great things, specifically from Erica from The Broken Spine, who is the main reason why I'm actually reading this so soon. But I'm excited to get to this. And then the queer arcs that I'll be reading. Hold the door. Hold the door! So the first one I want to mention here is Surrender Your Sons by Adam Sass. And this is a queer contemporary. I am probably going to read this one first after these 2 because it's actually on audio on script, which is perfect for me to get through it pretty quickly. While I do that, there's another one here I want to read, which is Raising Them, Our Adventure in Gender Creative Parenting by Kyle Myers. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory. This one's a nonfiction one that I'm also hoping to get to before the week is out. I think these 4 are doable between now and Wednesday when the October begins. I have another one that I could get to, which is The Archive of the Forgotten by A.J. Hackwith, which is book 3 of that series. And this is one that I probably wouldn't have bought if I didn't get it on ARC. It also comes out in October, and I might just wait till the audiobook comes out and listen to it and then review it then. I read the first one. I thought it was just okay. It wasn't my cup of tea in the tone. The premise is basically this idea you have this archive in hell of library books that were either unwritten or ended up not getting written because the author died too soon. Actually, there's another one here. Catfish Lullaby, which is a novella, which is horror, but apparently has LGBT aspects to it. This came out like a year ago. I have had this for a few months, so I should review it. And it has good reviews. I actually am very hopeful with this one. So if I get through the first 4, I'll probably read this one next. And those are all the books. I will be doing a reading vlog for the Queer Lit Readathon, so there will not be a Friday Reads for next week. Instead, it'll just be a vlog. I obviously am doing this so I didn't do a vlog for the Buzzword Readathon. I just wasn't in the mood. And I think this is the last Buzzword Readathon. If you at all follow Kayla from Books on Lala, you can check out her channel for more details there. It seemed like a good excuse. I wasn't going to participate at first, but it turns out I had a lot of backlist books that had the word night in it. I actually have a couple others I didn't get to. It is what it is, right? I read 5 books. One of them was an ARC. I think that's a pretty good week, eh? And that's it. I have to say goodbye again. I hate saying goodbye, but we have to do it. Stay safe and let me know what you read this week. Goodbye.